The stalking incident left a mark. How do you address the fact that their first instinct was to follow you rather than trust you? Does this lead to a deeper conversation about security or a light-hearted ban on Kirishima looking at kitchen counter receipts for a month? The cafe Takami picked had good coffee and terrible acoustics, which meant the noise of their lunch rush hour swallowed your conversation whole. You'd arrived first, tucking yourself into a corner booth and ordering a latte before your older brother texted that he was 2 minutes away. You hadn't told Bakugo or Kirishima about today. It had slipped your mind. Honestly, Takami was passing through the city for work, and a quick lunch between siblings didn't feel like something that needed an announcement. You'd mentioned it at breakfast, but both of them had been asleep and wholly focused on a hair agency document they'd been arguing over since 6 in the morning. You assumed it hadn't registered. You were wrong. Takami appeared in the doorway, 6 feet of sharp cheekbones and an expensive jacket, scanning the room until his eyes landed on you. He crossed the cafe in long strides and pulled you into a hug that lifted you off the seat. "You look tired," he said, sliding in across from you. "You look late," you said. "By 2 minutes. I've been counting." He stole your latte before you could stop him, took a sip and made a face. "No sugar." "I'm an adult, Takami." "Debatable." He grinned and flagged down a server, and you fell into easy conversation, the kind that only existed between people who had grown up in the same house, trading complaints about your mother's texts and arguing about whether the new hero ranking made any sense. You were deep into it, laughing at something he'd said about a coworker when the bell above the cafe door rang. You looked up out of habit. Bakugou and Kirishima stood in the entrance. For a moment, the three of you just looked at each other. Bakugou's expression did something complicated. His jaw tightened, red eyes cutting from you to Takami, and back with a sharpness that made your stomach drop. Kirishima's smile, usually immediate and wide, didn't arrive. He looked confused, then carefully neutral. Oh no, they came over anyway. Of course they did. "Hey," Kirishima said. His voice was easy enough on the surface, but you'd spent too long listening to him to miss the tightness underneath. "Didn't know you were going out today." "I mentioned that this morning." You said. "Right." He wasn't looking at Takami. That was the tell. Bakugo said nothing. He stood beside the booth, with his arms crossed, looking at Takami, the way he looked at a villain mid-standoff. Measuring, contained, furious. Takami glanced between the three of you with open curiosity and absolutely no idea what was happening. "Friends of yours." "My partners," you said. "Bakugo Katsuki and Kirishima Ejiro. This is Takami, my brother." The silence that followed was very loud. Kirishima blinked. The neutrality cracked. "Your brother?" "Yes." Bakugo's arms uncrossed. Something moved across his face that he immediately locked back down. But you caught it. The brief, almost unnoticeable exhale. He pulled his expression flat and looked at the table. Takami had the emotional intelligence to read a room. He stood and extended a hand to Kirishima first. "Takami Kigo, nice to meet you. Though I'm getting the feeling you thought I was something else." Kirishima shook his hand and had the grace to look embarrassed. We We didn't know you were the brother. Does that matter? Takumi asked, not unkindly though. It does when you're. Kirishima stopped, laughed once, short and a little pained. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna go ahead and say we showed up here because we thought you were on a date. You set down your cup. You followed me. We were nearby, Bakugou said, which was almost certainly a lie. The cafe was 3 districts from the agency. He finally looked at you directly, and there was something in his face that he wouldn't call an apology, but was functionally adjacent to one. You didn't say where you were going. I said I was having lunch with Takumi. You said Takumi. That's a name. People have names. He's my brother, Katsuki. I didn't know that. The volume climbed, half a step before he caught it. The couple at the next table glanced over. Bakugou squared his jaw. You've never mentioned a brother. They pulled you up short, because he wasn't wrong. He tried to remember the last time he had brought Takumi up, and realized with some discomfort that you couldn't. He lived across the country and traveled constantly, and he had years of practice treating that absence as just background noise. That's fair, you said. Takumi, unhelpfully, was delighted by all of this. He sat back down and folded his hands on the table with the expression of a man who intended to enjoy himself. So you're both dating my sibling. That a problem? Bakugou asked, flat. Depends, Takumi said. Are you always this suspicious of people they have lunch with? The silence stretched. Kirishima put a hand over his face. Sit down. You said. Both of you. You're already here. They sat. Kirishima beside you, and Bakugou across from Takumi. Looking like he was bracing for a fight he no longer had justification for. You watched him pick up a menu and stare at it without reading it. He really thought I was cheating. He didn't look up from the menu. Shut up. Katsuki. I said shut up. You go somewhere without telling either of us. Sit down with someone we've never seen and you're laughing. He met your eyes. I didn't like that. Kirishima nodded from your other side, head bowed slightly. We both got weird about it. He admitted. It wasn't a great look. You leaned into Kirishima's shoulder. First of all, I did tell you. And you were just basically asleep. We could have. He agreed. Instead, you tracked me down, like. We didn't track you. We just guessed where you were. Takumi laughed, a real one, bright and unguarded. He pointed at Bakugou. I already like you. And then at Kirishima. And you. You don't know us, Bakugou said. Well, you showed up to a cafe across the city in the middle of the day because you thought someone was making a move on your partner. That tells me a lot. Takumi leaned back, grinning. Well, relax, you've got nothing to worry about. I'm just a brother. For once, Bakugou had nothing to say to that. The food arrived, and the afternoon settled around the 4 of you. By the time coffee came around, Kirishima was asking Takumi about his year work with genuine interest, and Bakugou had moved from monosyllables to full sentences, which was as close to a peace offering as he ever got. You watched them and felt something untangle in your chest. You're going to tell them more, Takumi said quietly, when the two of them were arguing. Not just me, all of it. Yeah, you said. Good. They're not so bad. Coming from Takumi, that was actually quite high praise. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you like this video. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And goodbye.